If you're anything like me, you've struggled to deal with tanks at some point in your enlisted journey. When asking others for advice, the biggest theme I noticed for dealing with tanks turned out to be by using planes. At first, I was not interested at all, but over time, I learned how to fly and can confidently say the number one answer to any tank in this game is always a plane. I've even started to enjoy flying just a little bit, but don't tell anyone I said that. Today, I'm going to teach you how to fly planes, literally how to fly a plane, in case you have no idea or experience. We'll also look at how to effectively land bombs on target, as I see a lot of planes doing this incorrectly, thus having little impact with their payloads. Let's get right into how to fly. If you know a little of what you're doing, or confident in the ways to fly a plane, feel free to skip ahead. I have only flown and enlisted on a keyboard and mouse, so controller friends, hopefully you can adapt my teachings to your input device. First things first, W points the front of your plane down and S points it up. This is how you climb or descend in the air. Planes don't turn like a car does left and right. Instead, you want to tilt the plane left with A and right with D, and then pull up with S. This is how planes turn. In Enlisted, we can also adjust our plane's flight using pointer controls. This is basically just aiming with the mouse or controller. I recommend flying with the movement keys primarily, and then using pointer aim to make smaller adjustments. We can hold down the C key to start free looking. This allows us to turn our view and look around without affecting the plane's trajectory. I often hold the free looking key while flying, and let go of it when I want to focus on pointer aiming. Furthermore, we can use Q to your left and E to your right. This lets us turn a little in the air without needing to lean left and right. The last key control in flying is the throttle. By default, this should be Shift to increase and Control to decrease. This is represented by the thrust parameter, or thrust. This is shown in percentage of the engine's capability. We can max out at 110 thrust or 110% of the engine thrust capability. Here we have the TAS, or total airspeed. This tells us how fast we are travelling, and our alt, or altitude, tells us how many meters we are from the ground. Don't worry too much about anything else that shows up here, such as gear, flaps or air brake. The controls I have described to you are all that you need to begin flying successfully in Enlisted. There are other things we can control in the plane, but I haven't looked into that myself. Depending on the map you play, sometimes your plane will require a carrier takeoff. Don't worry, taking off an Enlisted is incredibly easy. If you max out the thrust whilst holding the free look key, you will basically always take off perfectly. Avoid turning while still on the boat. You don't want to crash into the boat itself. Focus on building up speed before trying to gain altitude, and you should be flying in no time. Finally, we have our plane's weapons. You will always be able to see which buttons do what, but generally, our left mouse button will shoot all our cannons, and we can right mouse to zoom in. You are able to separate your cannons to different keys if you would like, as you can save ammo on your bigger guns. Not all planes have multiple sets of machine guns, and you can see the payloads and equipment on their stat cards. We also will likely have bombs, rockets, or in some cases drop tanks on our planes. Pressing space once will deliver a payload of bombs. These are usually in pairs, but sometimes a plane comes equipped with 3 bombs, for example. A pair of lighter bombs and a heavier one, which will be dropped separately on its own. The set of bombs that will be dropped is displayed here. Drop tanks work the same as bomb payloads, but these are basically like bombs that will coat an area in flames. Some planes have exclusively bombs, some will have rockets, and some have a combination of both. To fire rockets, we can use the R key. Rockets always come in pairs as far as I'm aware. Bombs and rockets are plenty capable of killing infantry, vehicles and buildings alike, although I would suggest rockets for infantry and bombs for the latter. Rockets are still capable of destroying tanks, but it is much more difficult and requires very accurate fire to hit the more thinly armoured roofs or sides of tanks. Likewise, infantry are able to respond somewhat to bombs, as they don't detonate instantly, whereas rockets do. In the simplest terms, a dive attack in Enlisted consists of 4 key steps: approach, dive, release, pull out. The most important part of accurately bombing or rocketing ground targets is the approach. The preparation you put into properly crafting a bombing run will 100% reflect in how effective your attacks are. To begin our approach to the target, most importantly, we need altitude and speed. My preferred altitude to start a dive attack is around 600 to 700 meters. Depending on the plane or the map, you may have to dive bomb from around 300 altitude, but the higher the better in my opinion. This will give you more time to adjust for the target, see if they are moving, and essentially increases your accuracy. After gaining enough altitude, we need a general idea of where our target is. If you're looking to clear out infantry, we can easily guess where they will be, and also use the current objective markers as a reference. If we have marked tanks, or APC targets, great. We should be approaching our target whilst leveled out, at our desired altitude. When the target we want to destroy is visually around our pilot's feet, we know we have a good angle, and we can begin our dive. The angle of the dive is crucial, and you want at least 45 degrees if not more. As we begin diving, you want to maintain your speed and try and get the target in view as soon as possible. Keep the plane steady and prepare by aiming your bombs or rockets in the area just underneath your targeting scope, etc., as shown here on screen. Take into account if the tank is moving or not, as you will need to lead the target a bit, as bombs do not explode as soon as they hit the ground. Do not be tempted to shoot your machine guns at the tank whilst you are diving. This will alert the tank that they are under focus, giving them more time to react to the sudden bombs that will be appearing around them. You can shoot them if you're not going to bomb them, of course. At around this height is when we want to start thinking about releasing our payload. If we have maintained a correct dive angle, are on target, and the plane is steady, we can release our bombs. You want to ensure that you are not turning the plane left, right, up or down when you are releasing the bombs. A slight adjustment up here equates to a lot of distance travelled on the ground. You should basically only be pressing space to release your bombs and no other inputs. Be aware of where your bombs and rockets are equipped to the plane. If they are hung underneath the wings, you may want to aim a little left or right of your target. If there is a singular bomb directly underneath the plane, you can aim this directly at the target. Alternatively, we can begin to fire off a rocket payload. It's up to you to decide how many rocket pairs you want to commit to a target or area. Keep in mind that rockets only have a limited fuel, so they will only maintain their target for around 1 to 3 seconds at most before they begin to fall off course. Keep in mind that rockets are usually fired from the wings of the plane, so you will need to aim a little to the left or right underneath the crosshair. This also adjusts for each pair of rockets, as they will be equipped further out on the wing. This will generally come to you as you play with each plane, and learn the layout of where the rockets are, and how to aim with each plane. Now that we have released our payload, we can immediately begin pulling up and out of the dive, so that we don't die, obviously. The best way to do this is to hold S. Don't rely on pointer aim. Holding S gives us a full input of bringing the plane up and taking us out of a dive reliably and quickly. Remember, the faster your plane is travelling, the quicker it pulls up out of a dive. Try not to reduce your speed too much if you're going for a dive like this. As we come up out of our dive, make sure to look back at your work. Not only do you get to see the sweet explosion, but the visual feedback of where our bombs exploded is important for improving future attacks and knowing if what we did was correct or not. We'll also know if the tank was simply able to evade explosions and not that we missed, so to speak. And that should be a successful bombing attack. Feel free to practice this in the training range to get the hang of it before taking your plane out into the battlefield. Additionally, I have some quick tips for you that will help you out as a pilot in general. Remember that you can spam pings onto the ground to try and find targets. If you know whereabouts a tank is, it's always beneficial to have the exact mark, so feel free to spam marks until you find it. If I'm not able to find the mark on the target, I will sometimes just circle around and try again, to ensure that my bombs will hit their mark. Feel free to ask in text chat or via radio commands for your team to mark targets for you. Do not spam the radio commands, and try to be friendly. As an infantry main, nothing makes me want to stop marking the tanks I'm already marking more than someone being annoying and spamming. Tank machine guns use a green tracer, which is highly visible from the air and helps you find targets. Keep an eye out for other tracers, as this can reveal locations of grouped up infantry. You want to constantly be checking your surroundings in the air, on the lookout for other planes trying to get the drop on you. I am basically always free looking and checking behind my shoulders, above, below, and across the skyline for any potential threats. Don't just fly back blindly to resupply. Most times, a plane fight is resolved by who saw who first. You should try and get this perk as soon as you can on all of your pilots. The advantage this gives is insane, and you can sometimes spot friendly/enemy planes before they even visibly render in. This perk is nuts, and it should be considered mandatory on each plane. Additionally, you should pretty much be trying to grab as many perks for pilots as you can. Their benefits are quite substantial. Flight stamina and its regen are paramount to maintaining control of your plane. Flight stamina is used up during high G maneuvers, and running low causes you to black out. This impairs your visuals, but if you fully black out, you will become what is known as G-locked. This means your control over the plane is very limited, and your flying will become stiff. If this happens mid-dogfight, you're basically as good as dead. G-locking also happens during a carrier takeoff. Keep in mind that not every map is suitable for planes. Some regions like Stalingrad or certain Berlin areas are super urban, and it's difficult to line up your runs with the city streets. Consider other options on these maps, or stick to the plane being aware that it won't be simple. Hopefully, if you follow my advice and put in some practice, you'll be sinking tanks like battleships in no time. If you're a more experienced flyer than me, feel free to leave some tips for others to improve with. Thank you so much for watching. As always, the links to all my socials are in the description. Hope you have a nice day, and I'll see you next time.